Hello traders and welcome back to my YouTube channel IPDATrader. Now in today's video we are going to be simply going over the four markets that I trade, right, as you can see over here to the right, and we're just very simply going to be going over the trades that I'm seeing, what I'm expecting to happen, and essentially focusing on the idea of understanding market mapping and formulating trade ideas that we can then later execute potentially, right, if things line up. So this is what we're going to be doing today. I've thought about creating a presentation and going through that using theory, but I think it's going to be much better if we can actually go through the market as it is and try to explain certain things and certain ideas that I may be looking to take. Because once again, at the end of the day, and this is the very same thing that I tell my students in the mentorship, the concepts are there for you to learn, but in terms of how you want to apply it, the way you want to experience them, how you want to use them, that's completely your job and task as a trader, right? Because no two traders are the same. We already know that. And essentially, you have to be able to experience the concepts and try to apply them in a way that makes sense to you in the markets. And you're going to get that once again by getting screen hours, watching the market, and actually trying to execute consistently, right? So with that being said, if this sounds like something you want to learn today, make sure you stick to the entire video because once again, I'm going to be trying my best to provide you with valuable knowledge and information. So let's get started with today's lesson. So guys, here we are on the charts once again. We're looking at Euro USD on the daily time frame, and we're going to be going over my process that I do daily pretty much to understand where I want to do business, why, and how I'm going to be trading the next session, right? So it is important to mention that we do have FOMC in an hour at the time that I'm recording this video. So seeing this bit of price action is expected, right? This is not something that I'm going to be looking to trade, but we're going to be getting into that a little bit later. Now, once again, going back to the daily, when I look at this, my thought process is actually very straightforward. I see this, right? This is something that's interesting to me. So we essentially dropped, pull back, potentially establish a lower high, and we may very well be on our way to a new lower low, right? That is a probability that I'm seeing just by watching at the daily, based on the fact that we've been trending down, that we had a lower high, right? Lower low, lower high, lower low, and we could expect a lower high to form, maybe over here, maybe it actually comes higher and places it up here, right? That's a probability too. But at the end of the day, we are seeing rejections over here at this zone. So more than likely we're going to see bearish, which is what we're getting now, and this is just based on the daily, right? As we zoom into the time frames, and once again, let's zoom into a 4-hour, more information is available for us, right, to try and make decisions. First thing that I see over here is I see a breakout structure over here, established bullish trend as such, and looks like this could be happening on the 4-hour, right? So now we have confusion because daily is telling you that we might shift bearish and take the low out, but internal structure on the 4-hour is bullish, right? So what I do in situations like this is I play both, right? I'm willing to take buys, I'm willing to take sells. It's just whatever it's gonna offer itself to me more easily, and I must as well be very confident in that idea for me to actually take that. So when we zoom into the 4-hour, and actually it's going to a 2-hour because I'm playing the intraday, potentially may hold for hours. Sometimes I hold for minutes. It really depends on market movement, right? But looking at the 1-hour, let's say, we can see that our most recent break is over here. It's very easy to see. We've established a new higher high. However, we know that this higher high could be a potential turning point based on the daily. So what we do, we play both, right? Well, that's at least what I want to do. I was expecting buys over here because I knew all this was liquidity. I did watch this area, which ended up meaning no trade for me based on the price action that developed. But essentially, I was willing to buy this area, this key level specifically, I think I spoke about this with in the weekly outlook video with my students. Nonetheless, this ended up playing out pretty nicely. It didn't grab an execution for me, which is fine, but this was essentially a buy point. Now, why was this a buy point? It's very easy to understand, right? Once again, I'm just deciding this based on the fact that the intraday time frame that I'm looking to trade, as an example, the 1 hour, has a break to the upside right over here. And this to me looks potential retracement before we continue further up. Now, how far can this go? Right? That's a question that we don't know, because why? We might drop a little bit lower, clear the liquidity low, and then push up. Right? So what I'm essentially trying to say is that you have to do your market mapping before information, before actually looking to trade, right? You cannot try to execute trades without a very well-defined market mapping. So the way I do it is, once again, this is an example, is a market mapping for bullish and bearish price action to be expected. I know that I may look to potentially sell over here. I know that I may look to potentially sell over here. And I know that I may look to potentially sell over here as well, right? I know that I want to be buying over here potentially and buying over here potentially as well. So basically what I'm seeing develop over here is, as long as we hold above this zone, I think we can continue further up. This is your first area to watch for problems, for potential turning point before we resume bearish, because once again we do have this lower POI, which could result in a turn, right? We don't really know. Or we might get a bigger pullback, supply drop, right? So essentially, what it's very simple. Looking to buy at these zones over here in blue, looking to sell in red, and just following whatever structure and order flow, timing, and delivery overall I'm getting. It's very, very simple. You have to work with that, and it's going to be easy once you've done it multiple times and you've actually gathered some experience in marking your market. Sorry. So moving now to GU, and it's in a very similar spot, right? Just because once again they're correlated. So we have the very same story over here, right? Let's quickly go through the daily bearish trend. Potential pullback, potential lower high, retrace into the origin, right? You see how powerful origin blocks are. We dropped all the way back down into the opposite end of the range, which is where we're currently sitting. So we have internal bullish, internal structure bullish, external bearish, right? I've denoted the external points over here. You can see them. So with that being said, once we zoom into the 2 hour, we can see internal bullish structures being delivered, right? We can see that very, very clearly. We have this break in market structure. We have a higher high being established. We failed to create a new higher high, and now we're coming for the lows. So what I was essentially looking at today was, actually not today, I think this was the other day. Yeah, exactly. I was looking to buy this area. As you can see, I followed the mitigation the best I could. And now we're returning back over here. So this may very well be an interesting point. However, due to the fact that once again, we have FOMC happening in less than an hour now. And even though they're not discussing interest rates or things like that, I'm still going to be cautious with trading any USD pairs, because it can get very, very messy very, very quickly. But once again, this is an interesting area to monitor for longs, just based on the fact that we've been getting this bullish break up. We had a beautiful two-side manipulation. We have a pull over here. We manipulated both sides today as well. I'm unsure why this did not take that, but this could be safe for later, because once again, we could pull up in the short term to then drop further down as well. Right? You have to be considering always both scenarios. Where do I want to buy and why? Where do I want to sell and why? Right, so this is what I see on GU. It's very simple. I've just denoted one supply zone over here. This is a type of POI, and this is something that could be interesting for shorts for me, right? But as of now, we've reacted to the origin. We've mitigated very deep into it, and we could be on our way up now, right? It's in the same spot as Euro USD, where they're trying to bounce from previous demand. But once again, we don't know if this is going to be a short-term bounce into supply, right, before we resume this bearish trend that has now shifted over here. right? As we fail to make a new higher high and we break below internal structure. You can see that, right? This was a valid sell area for me based on the fact that it broke internal structure over here, retraced, and moved all the way down. Very, very straightforward. So let's continue and let's go through more pairs actually. Let's actually go through that. So looking at GJ, it's been very interesting. This is an area that I shared with everybody in my community. This particular key level, you can see that was the high of the week indeed last week. We dropped all the way down to the other opposite end of the range, which is once again an area you should consider to close trades, manage trades, things like that. So it was a pretty successful idea that I developed pretty much. So looking at GJ, let's quickly look through the daily, and when I see stuff like this, I know very easily this is just building liquidity on both sides. You can see the large wicks grabbing that liquidity, not so much on the top actually, but still on the bottom, lots of liquidity has been collected, which makes me think that we're overall going to continue up, right? Also, if you look at the trend, we've been very bullish. We had a higher high, higher low, higher high, and so far we've not breached this higher low right over there on the daily, right? So that's some information to consider. We now move on to the 3 hour as an example. And once again, we have some very difficult price action, right? It's difficult, but my bias is still there, right? You can see what I'm looking at. I have this leg. This is my leg high, leg low, break in market structure over here. So this is essentially my external point on this particular time frame, on this particular leg, right? We have external. So we're playing this range. This is the range high, range low. What do we know about ranges? Above the 50%, it's going to be considered expensive, and we're going to be dragged down, right? More unless we obviously start breaking above. But you can see how as soon as we reach the 50, we tap deeper into the 60, but overall we're seeing rejections occur because this has been seen from the algorithm point of view as expensive. So with that information, this is an area that I'm watching, which I'm not too happy about, especially because it's getting very late into the day and it's building consolidation, which may mean that we get a new grab up and higher. And look at as well as this, right? I've been playing this last point of true mitigation, but at this point, it's very obvious that we do have lots of liquidity over here. So we may spike through that, right? And you can see I have 1 and 2, which this is just me going over some information with students. We have 1 and 2, which are my selling areas, right? Very easy to see. They're essentially there based on this break, once again, based on the fact that they're discounted or very close to it, which once again are the POIs above the 62. You can consider them as cheap to sell and therefore can more often than not produce reactions, right? Very likely. You can see either a reaction leg into demand and we continue further up, right? That could very well happen. Or it can be actually the turning point that makes the new lower low externally, right? So you have 2 options when you play ranges like this, really. You can try and trade these selling areas. Let's actually keep that as pullback legs into demand before we continue pushing further up, or you can expect them to make the entire time frame lower low. But once again, that idea you should be really assessing with price action. As more information is given to you, you should be adapting in terms of trade management and seeing, should I close trades? Should I manage positions? Is this looking good for my position? Right? You have to be constantly asking yourself that question as you're trading, something that you have to consider as well. So looking at this information, I once again want to potentially sell over here and potentially sell over here. And I repeat, this is not that I'm going to place a risk order over here, but rather going to be looking for some sort of confirmation that's going to essentially confirm that that is indeed a good area to do business at. If we do drop from here, could very well happen, especially as we zoom into the lower time frame. We can see that we've manipulated this range with this move up right over here, right? And we've started to drop again. Bullish structure is holding over here, bullish order flow, so this may actually push further up. But if you see this break, then you can expect a down move, right? We have some liquidity pools right over here, some imbalances to fill. These segments over here that I'm highlighting for you, you should pay attention. Those are your areas where price is going to move fast through, right? It's not going to have a problem dropping from this to this because this is all imbalance, and that is all likely to be filled and mirrored on the way down, if that's what's going to happen, right? If we push further up, then that's what we do. We have FOMC as well, so we shall wait and see. Now, moving on to gold, which has been producing amazing trades for me lately. It's looking like this. This level over here, 1808. I shared that with members as well as a potential selling area right there. And you can see with the news, we spiked up into that and we dropped and we dropped and we dropped. This was an actually amazing selling opportunity. I didn't take this because I was waiting for this area and I wanted to short over here, and I ended up not taking a short because I missed it, which is what will happen from time to time. It happens to everybody. It's just the way the business works. So looking at gold, and I've said that this actually today to my students, I'm looking at this area and it's very interesting to me because we've essentially arrived all the way back down here. We've not been here in a while, right? And we're back. Now, looking at the 2-hour, I can very well see, and this is the important information that you have to understand. Look at this, guys. So we had a low, move away. We traded below the low, right below this low, and then we moved aggressively higher. What does that tell you? Right? And I made a video on this topic very specifically, but this is something very, very important. What has happened over here is that traders that went short below the low, which I can guarantee you, there's many traders that did that, they're caught over here, right? They're caught holding shorts from underneath this area. People that were long or bullish, that were in buy positions based on this bullish movement, have been stopped out, right? So shorts have been initiated, longs have been stopped. So that's why we squeeze those shorts in the opposite direction, and now we've returned to this same price point. So this is very interesting to me. If you look closely as well, you can see that this mitigated a previous piece of structure. So this is a last point of true mitigation for you right here. The very same things that I've been teaching for a year now on YouTube for free, right? Last point of true mitigation that clears a previous swing low, that initiates shorts, that stop the longs, squeezes to the other side, and now we're back over here. Now ATR, which are the lines that you see over here, is not something that I want to talk about now, but just to let you guys know, I use them as confluence and really nothing else. They're not really that significant in my trading, but I've been testing them. They tend to work very well for reversals. Obviously, I'm not taking a buy just because of that, but it's just part of confluence that really helps from time to time. So looking at this structure, finally, we've arrived. So this is an area for me to go long, pretty much. Now the thing is FOMC, right? We have that in 40 minutes now. What's going to happen? Because we could very well spike down with the volume and volatility provided with news, initiate more shorts below lows, and then move up, right? Or we could move down with FOMC. I don't know, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to communicate you here is that my idea is to potentially buy this price point. And I wanted to go over the logic behind doing so. And I already went through that. You can see the intraday break to the upside. You can see that it created a new high. You can see that it retraced. You can see all the internal range liquidity, such as this double Asian lows, squeezed into your block. So you have that information. You can see that shorts were initiated below your area. So you know this is a good area to do business at. There's going to be bids waiting to be filled, more than likely. And we have some pulls to the upside. Now, if I want to go short, sure, it's opportunity there too. This is a type of POI that's very interesting that I'm not going to go over. But it's more so explained in the mentorship. This is an area of interest for me. This candle over there as well, right? So I'm always open, well, not always, but most of the time I'm open to taking buys and sells and just making decisions based on the price action and where we're hitting, right? It's just the way that I trade and the way that makes sense to me. And once again, the daily idea is the very same thing, right? You have this daily structure point that we've tapped into. Right, so this could very well reverse and go to making a new lower low. That's why I like to trade this USD pairs, right? Because you can see on the daily they all have very similar stories in terms of the price action. We could very well get a new leg lower now that we've created, that we've rejected this IFC structure right over here. But I want to trade based on the intraday, and I'm gonna follow that. And once again, I would then zoom into the lower time frame just to give you some context and look at the order flow reading, right? And say to myself, okay, if I want to go long, this is a structural point that I want to see break, just based on the 5 minute. And if I see that as too far away, then I might look for a different area, or I might want to say, okay, let's actually wait for a grab into a key level and go long from there, right? There's always multiple options. You have to adapt based on whatever the information is that you're receiving. So traders, with that being said, I think that makes up for a very good video in terms of understanding market mapping and trade ideas, formulating trade ideas. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to drop a comment and a like if you actually enjoyed. If you have comments, suggestions, things like that, you can always drop that in a comment and I will be more than happy to go through that. Also, remember that the link for the mentorship, where I teach you how I view the market, is going to be available for you in the link in the description below. So feel free to check that out if you're interested in that. The link's going to be there for you. Thank you for listening and good luck, everybody. We shall see what FOMC does to the market, and I will see you guys very soon. Take care.